Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Research Triangle PowerShell User Group. My name is Mike Kanakis, and along with my co-host Phil Bossman, tonight we are going to be watching a presentation from Mr. Steven Judd. Hey, Steven, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
We're doing all right. Phil, what's new?
Well, the PowerShell community is getting a lot bigger. We're super excited about all that, and we're really getting some people engaged. So we're having on-prem meetings. We're also, having other events in the community. So super excited about that, and just excited to hear what Steven's got to talk.
Yeah, so let's just touch on that real quick. So if you are watching this at home on YouTube and you'd love to join us, our group is based in Raleigh, North Carolina. You can join us in person. We meet once a month in person and once a month online. There's a remote option for all our meetings. You can always join us on Meetup, and you can ask the questions of our presenters yourself. Tonight, we are very happy to have a long-running member of our group and frequent presenter, Mr. Steven Judd, joining us tonight. Phil and I just spent quite a bit of time with this gentleman over the weekend. Feels like we just left him maybe 48 hours ago.
Yeah, it
How are you,
feels like
Steven?
that, doesn't it? Hey, I like how you set me up for a long running joke when the title of my slide is Learning is Like Running a Marathon.
It's a lot
Thanks for
of
that.
hours in a car.
Well, I
Thanks for
guess you
that.
got a joke ready to go for that one. We'll save that for.
Yeah, I always
So,
have jokes ready to go.
so for the people at home that may not have met you prior, tell us a little bit about you and your background in the community, and then maybe when you get a chance, tell us a little bit about what we're going to be talking about tonight.
All right. Well, I am Steven Judd, as you introduced me. I have been an IT pro now for, oh my goodness, 30 years. And I got my start on the help desk, which a lot of people start with phone support. I was just enjoying computers and like playing around with them and decided to turn that into a career. Since then, I went to desktop support, network support, uh, pulled cable, punched down blocks, all that fun stuff, set up firewalls, did web servers. I was with a .com company until it went bust. That was a lot of fun. And then I moved over into the energy sector. From there, I was web admin, did SharePoint, did automation with K2, and they just seem to keep throwing different technologies at me. So when you look at my resume, it looks like a buzzword bingo scorecard, and all the squares are punched out because I've touched a lot of stuff. I got started in PowerShell about 2010. I was actually introduced to it in 2008 when it had just turned from Monad to version 1.0. And I looked at it and went, okay, I don't understand this. I don't know why I would use a tool that just wants to do a bunch of WMI calls. I already got VB script for that. What do I need this for? Then when I went to the SharePoint conference, I saw how much effort they were putting into PowerShell and how almost all of the advanced admin stuff was in PowerShell and not in the UI. And I thought, oh shoot, I better learn this tool. So since then, I've just dove into being a PowerShell person, and I've really enjoyed the journey. Let's see, I've done cloud with PowerShell. I've done multiple clouds with PowerShell. I've done big data in Azure. I've done digital security, and most recently, I was um, I was an exchange and enterprise messaging admin at Meta until they had their cutbacks, and unfortunately, I got cut back. So now I'm at a software as a service company in the transportation industry.
So you've done a few things.
I've been here and there, done a few bits.
Yeah. So, but the benefit of that for our uh, for our people at home is that one of the great things about when Stephen does his presentations is he does presentations that are very relatable to a wide variety of people because he has such a diverse background. He covers topics that have an impact for a lot of people, and I would expect that's probably the same tonight. What are we going to be talking about tonight?
So tonight, I'm going to stay out of the technology realm. I'm going to relate it to the technology realm, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about career. And we're going to see in just a second that the title of this talk is Learning is Like Running a Marathon. And so it's going to be the things that I've picked up, because believe it or not, I have completed 10 marathons. and I like distance running. I actually am one of those broken people that enjoy it. And so there's there are things that you do in running and preparing to run a marathon that are very relatable to life lessons. And so that's what the talk is tonight.
All right.
Think so. All right.
Phil, you have
No,
anything
take it
you
away.
want to add before we get started?
No, I'm excited.
Awesome.
All right.
All right. So we're going to hand it
Well,
over to Mr. Judd. And just a last reminder, if you'd like to join us for the next one, come visit us at rtpsug.com or on Meetup. You can search for the Research Triangle PowerShell User Group. We'd love to see you at the next one. All right, Stephen, it's all yours.
all right, let's see if I can get my sharing to work as expected, as anticipated. Get me over to my presentation slide. There we go. That looks pretty good. I guess I better click hide because I don't care to know that I'm sharing. All right, so as I said, we're going to talk about how learning is like running a marathon. These are my life lessons from an amateur athlete wannabe. You ever meet me in person, you're going to look at me and go, yeah, athlete? No, that's not the first thing that'll come to your mind. But I do enjoy playing sports. I had relatively good hand-eye coordination. And so if you have good hand-eye coordination, you can look good doing sports, even if you aren't good at doing sports. So I've already introduced myself, but I have my standard slide here that quickly goes through who I am. I'm Steven Judd. I'm a multi-year, multi-discipline IT pro. But as we said, I'm also a PowerShell enthusiast, and that's why I hang out in the PowerShell groups and why I give presentations to people that are interested in PowerShell. I really do enjoy it. But you guys know this. If you met me at all, I'm also a dad joke enthusiast. And you're in good luck, or you're in good shape for this presentation because there's very little dad jokes here. What you may not know is that some people have considered me to be a fashion icon, and they want to mimic my look. They like my drip, as the kids say. Okay, maybe not. All right, let's get to the talk. So the question that you may be asking yourself is, why does this talk matter to you? Because you're really here to learn about technology and get technology tips for yourself and solve problems. And typically, I do talk about PowerShell or PowerShell related topics. So the question is, what will learning technology do for you? Or learning about technology do for you? And what does running have to do with learning technology? How did those relate? And in this case, I'm glad that you asked because, if you didn't ask, this would be a very short talk if you, via me, didn't ask that question. So the first thing we're going to talk about is you need commitment. In other words, you need to want to do what you're doing. As in, how bad do you want to do this? If there's something you want to learn, how bad do you want to learn it? And what is your motivation behind learning whatever it is you're wanting to learn? Because you're going to put some time into it. So what do you think you're going to get from the effort? In other words, will it be worth the time spent? And also not just the time spent, but whenever you're spending time or energy on something, you want to know about the opportunity costs. So when you're talking about this in relation to running a marathon, I committed to running a marathon by planning to run a marathon with my brothers back in, when was that, 2012. Once we started talking about running a marathon, we kind of had to decide, all right, well, which one are we going to run? So I came up with the idea of running the Disney World Marathon. I thought, hey, if you're going to run a marathon, you might as well run a fun one and turn it into a vacation as well. So once I was committed to the idea, I signed up in April 2012 for a run in January 2013. That's, quite a few months ahead of time to get ready and prepare. And I had been running before then, and I thought, hey, this will be my first marathon. It'll be fun. I also planned and paid for a family vacation centered around the run. Since there are no refunds for this run, you're kind of committed. So you pay all the money up front and then you start doing your training. So that's the commitment for doing the marathon. In your career, I'll give you my example on that too. We talked about it a little bit in the intro. I basically committed to learning PowerShell twice. There was once in 2011 and again in 2019. So I mentioned in 2011, I was still pretty new to PowerShell. And I was basically saying to myself that I want to be more than just basic with my scripts. My scripts are working, but they're just doing, hey, run this command, hey, run this command. And I really wanted to know more. So I started learning and started understanding a little bit more about it, like what to do with objects and how to pass command output from one to the other across the pipeline. And I got fairly good at it. Um, and so I committed in 2011, hey, I want to get better at this. Well, then in 2019, I went to Summit and the Summit in Seattle. And I saw the level that some people were at, and I said, wow, there's a lot more I can do here. So I decided to really push myself to get as close as I could to the level of the presenters and the other attendees that I was talking to there. So from that, I agreed to write a chapter in the PowerShell Conference Book, Volume 3, and I started talking to people about presenting talks to user groups, and that's how I got my first talk at the Research Triangle PowerShell user group. Let's see, what else? Basically, the skills and the knowledge I developed kind of helped drive my career forward to the point in 2021 I was able to get job offers after being let go due to a merger at the oil and gas company I was at. After I got let go, I had job offers from Avanade, Microsoft, and Meta, and the state of Oklahoma all at the same time because they saw what I could do with automation and it was demonstrable, and they wanted me to go work there and to help them solve their problems. Plus, now I'm here speaking to you. So the question is, was it worth it? Well, for me, it sure has been so far. I'm going to take a quick glance at the chat here. Jeremy wants to know, where did I get my shirt? I made my shirt and I had it printed online. Let's see. Phil, you're killing me, Phil. All right, no other questions out there. So we'll move on to point number 2. So point number 2 is you need a plan, right? You kind of need to know what it is you're going to do. You've made a commitment, you're going to do this run, or you've made a commitment, you're going to learn this skill. So now you kind of need to think about, all right, well, what's your plan? Now you could just go randomly about it, but that's not going to get you where you want to be. And there's different plans for different people. So for example, there's a beginner plan or an intermediate plan or an advanced plan. Depending upon where you are and what your skill base is for whatever it is you're trying to learn, you need to adjust your plan for yourself. In other words, you need to make sure that the plan fits. You need to match your plan with both your goals and your life situation. For example, someone with a lot of family obligations and or limited financial freedom is going to have a different plan that from someone who has both plenty of free time and plenty of cash flow. So don't try to get your plan to match up with someone else's plan. Make sure it fits you. More important than that, really, is to just use a plan that you're going to stick to. So if you do a really aggressive plan, but you don't stick to it, it doesn't do you any good. And if you do a really easy plan and you don't stick to that, that's not going to do you any good either. And then ask people who have experience. Someone who's been down the path and has done the work that you've done or are trying to do, they're going to be able to help you kind of fine tune a plan, or they can help you avoid any pitfalls that they already ran into. Because basically, the plan is not really as important as your willingness to commit to the plan, which is kind of a callback to the previous point. The important information to get from the people with experience is the plan that fits your situation. It's more helpful to ask people that you know as opposed to asking strangers as well, unless those strangers are willing to spend time with you, get to know you, and to determine and develop a good plan for you. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about, well, who should I ask in order to get my plan customized for myself? The next point is preparation. So if you're going to do any of this work, you need to prepare. In other words, do you have the right gear? Okay. Well, what is the right gear? Well, if you're going to run a marathon, the right gear will include clothes, It's going to include shoes. It's going to include bandages, because yes, that is an important thing. When it comes to learning something like technology, right? Um, Technologically speaking, it's, do you have a space where you can learn? Do you have the right equipment? Do you have cloud access, or do you have your own computer in your own computer lab? Are you just one of those people who has a rack in your basement and you've got it chock full of gear that's loud and generates a lot of heat and makes people wonder, why is your electricity bill so high? That kind of thing. Um, so you may need to get dedicated equipment or environments to learn quickly. You may need to check on your toenail status. Now, if you're a runner, you understand what I'm talking about. So it's those things that you may be asking yourself, well, okay, what does a toenail have to do anything? And is he going to hit me with a dad joke here? Nope, I'm not going to. I'm going to tell you a little story. One time early in my running journey, I got back from a training run and I took off my shoe, and the toe of my sock was red, and it was supposed to be a white sock. And I went, uh-oh, what happened here? Well, what I learned was skin gets soft whenever it gets moisture, and my feet were sweating, and it found a sharp point on an adjacent toenail. Now, that's not a big deal if you're running, 1 or 2, 3 miles, but if you're doing a 13-mile training run, that kind of thing shows up. And so at distance, minor things can become major. So I would relate that to your career. So in your career, you need to watch out for pain points that may seem minor at the time, but once you start putting in significant efforts, those minor pain points are really going to turn into something major, or they could turn into something major. So things like unreasonable deadlines, excessive on call expectations, lack of support, lack of direction or career path, and things like that may cross into that territory. Now, they may be not a big deal at first, but over time, as the distance starts to increase, those things will start to show up. And so you can take it for a while, but then they'll eventually become a major problem. Okay, so the next one I'm going to talk about is patience, because you're going to need patience. All right, because marathon prep takes time. There's just no getting around that there's time involved. So when you're talking about learning as well, there are things that just take time. You may want to learn something new right now, but it doesn't seem to be working out. So sometimes you kind of have to wait until the opportunity presents itself. Okay, because as I said, running a marathon takes time. It's one of those things that they don't really tell you about when you're going to run a marathon, is when it's time to actually run the marathon, getting to the location to actually run the marathon can take time. Because if you're going to a popular marathon, there's a lot of other people that want to run this marathon. So there's a lot of other people and a lot of other cars and a lot of parking, and then getting to the start line and lining up and all that. It just takes a while to get into the position in order to start your run. That's one of those things that you don't think about until you've actually been through it. And you're like, oh, wow, that was surprising. The other thing that you're not thinking about necessarily is waiting for the start of the race. That can take time. Now, unless you're an elite runner who they all shuffle them and chew them up to the front so that they can just get going and take off. I am obviously not an elite runner, so I'm middle of the pack, back of the pack. And so the gun goes off and it's time to start the run, and you may have 10 to 15 minutes before you even cross the start line. Okay, well, how does that relate to the career and learning? It's the same thing. It's sometimes you have to wait until the opportunity presents itself. You're waiting until the training budget gets set up, or you're waiting until your boss is okay with it. You may have to sell your ideas for a while before someone says, yeah, we actually do want you to do that. And so you have to be patient. Um, One example is if you're going to talk at a conference, you James Petty was talking about that the call for proposals is going to be coming up for Summit next year. Well, by the time it gets here and you submit your proposal, you have to wait after submitting your proposal to find out if you're going to be accepted. If you get accepted, and I hope some of you submit and get accepted, then you have to wait until the conference time comes around. And I think from the beginning to the end, that's a 6 month process. So, you just have to be patient as you're waiting for things to take effect. Just remember that learning something new can really take time and you may not see immediate results. So you just need to trust the process. And getting your time takes time sometimes. So this was something else I learned in running is you cross the finish line, and if you're like me, you have a watch with the GPS, so you kind of know your time. But if you want your official time, what they call the chip time is the little sensors. My first few runs, it took a little bit of time to get your time because you had to go to a tent and they had to look you up and then they had to print off your time. And if you didn't want to do that, you waited until they got posted online. Sometimes that took a little bit of time. So, I'm just saying you need to be patient. Next point is you need to be flexible. Now, okay, so you've committed and you've got yourself all set up and you're off and running and things happen because things are not going to go according to plan. I have not had one run or one training plan go according to plan as I'm trying to get set up for my runs. Or I don't know about you guys, but I make plans in my life as well outside of running, and those don't go according to plan. My training doesn't go according to plan. Recently, my career has not gone according to plan. So you need to be flexible. No matter how well you prepare, things are not going to go to plan. And so you need to be willing and able to make adjustments. That's important. I've already mentioned I had a lot of job uncertainty recently, and I've just had to be flexible and move along with the basically the cards that have been dealt to me. Now I'm at yet another new to me company and I'm getting myself established. The fun part about this particular job is that it's very Linux heavy. And so I'm learning a lot of new skills in the Linux world. Thankfully, I'm able to use PowerShell because it's cross compatible and that makes me feel comfortable, but it also allows me to do things with the objects in PowerShell that I'm used to doing that sometimes can be tricky in Linux because it's all text. So again, you just have to be adapt and be flexible. Seeing some motion over here in the chat. Let me look over there right quick.
It's just noise for me.
I'm sorry.
Don't worry, we'll bring you in.
Okay. All right. I'll just rely on you guys to jump in. Next up, we have small goals because you're going to need small goals and small wins to help. And this is where your plan's going to help, right? So if you're running your first marathon, you're going to have a lot of firsts. It's going to be the first time you ran this far. It's going to be the first time you ran for this long. It's going to be the first time you ran this consistently. Hopefully, it'll be the first time you got runner's high, which is a real and legitimate thing that I thought was baloney until it happened to me. And then I thought I could run forever. Unfortunately, it only lasted 2 miles, and I found out I couldn't run forever, but it does happen. So pulling that back to your career, in your career, it may be the first time that you were the lead. It may be the first time you solved a division-wide problem. It may be the first time you've contributed code. And maybe it's the first time you've contributed code publicly in GitHub. Maybe the first time you put a dollar amount to your contribution, which I highly recommend that you do. And if you got any questions about that, or you want to see an example, then I suggest you go to my blog, which is blog.stevenjudd.com, and go find the article where I talk about how to monetize your contribution to the organization. Because if you're going to talk to leadership about improving your compensation, then you need to have tangible numbers to show them that you're delivering higher than your current compensation value. That's important. Make sure you notice those intermediate wins that you've been having. So when you've been doing them, take stock of those and not necessarily pat yourself on the back, but give yourself the credit for what you've done and recognize your progress. Every once in a while, it's good to take a look back at your career and kind of see where you were and see where you are today. It's also part of the plan for where you want to go next. Give yourself some credit for improving your position. And as a side note here, I do definitely do want to mention, make sure you're comparing yourself to yourself. It's such a dangerous trap to look at other people and see how they're doing and try to compare yourself to that. Make sure you're looking only at yourself, because this is your race being run, not someone else's. All right, so here's our PowerShell get help, because you need help. It just, you're going to do better if you get help, because encouragement goes a long way, like 26.2 miles long way. So what you want to do is you want to find people that are on a similar journey, and then you can ask advice from those that are more experienced from you. And so again, that's a callback to getting help for your plan. User groups and conferences are a great place to find people that are wanting to move forward, just like you're wanting to move forward. And so, what I'm saying is make the most of those opportunities. I prepared for and ran my first marathon, unfortunately, by myself. Both of my brothers who wanted to do it had issues in their life that precluded them from being able to do it. I didn't have anyone else training for a marathon in Florida in January. And so I basically ran my training plan by myself, and I ran with a lot of people, but I was basically running by myself in Florida as well. And since then, I've run with other people in other groups and done training group runs. And it just goes better if you have people alongside you that are helping you achieve the goals that you're looking to achieve. And I also made some mistakes that I could have avoided as I was preparing for and completing my first marathon if I had just had a little bit of help from someone with experience. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Just make sure you've put in the appropriate amount of effort first, so that you're not asking people to help and they ask, well, what have you done so far? And you go, nothing. Like, don't do that, but also do ask for help. Well, this one seems a little obvious, but you need to run. Okay. That's, in other words, you keep putting one foot in front of the other until you get to the finish line. When you're trying to learn something new, you have to learn something new. You have to keep at it. You have to read the materials. You have to read the docs. You have to read the logs. You have to watch the YouTube presentations. You have to turn TikTok and Discord off so that you're not distracted by the scroll of the internet. And you really need to focus, because you've followed the plan, you've prepared, right? You're ready. So Nike slogan, just push it. I think I didn't turn on the sound, so you didn't hear my little sound joke. Did my sound joke play over the sound?
We absolutely did, and it was awful.
We heard a little bit. Heard a little push it.
All right. Well, I realized that I forgot I had sound in this presentation, and I should have checked the little box that says play through. But anyway,
we heard it anyway, and I was ready to mute somebody else, but I'm like, oh, it's him.
Yeah. The point is, in our careers, this is kind of like, oh, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead to my next slide. That joke fell so flat, it like threw me off. So anyway, you keep putting one foot in front of the other. When you're learning, you just got to keep at it and you may have an aha moment in your learning too. I've had this happen to me before, where I'm trying to learn something and it just isn't clear. It feels like I'm not learning anything at all. It takes forever. You're slogging through, you get discouraged. That's where, again, it's good to have help, where someone goes, you can learn this, you can get this, let me help you. And then one moment you have the epiphany, you have the aha, and then it starts clicking, and then you're off, and no pun intended, running with your learning, and you're like, get excited again because it's happening. Okay. So then you've done your run. Now it's time to celebrate. And you do need to celebrate. Okay. Because this was something that you wanted. Like, you started at the beginning with a commitment. You said, I want this thing. And then you put in the plan, you created a plan, and you put in the work, and you were flexible as adversity showed up. And then you did the work by running this thing, and then you're done. So celebrate. And if you really did something worthwhile, it was something that was hard. And you said this was something that you spent your valuable time pursuing and you completed it. So by all means, enjoy the moment. Because as you guys already know, the harder something is to achieve, then the greater the satisfaction is once you achieve that thing, right? And when you're pursuing something, the celebration that you choose after the pursuit is up to you. I had an instructor for my GX certified incident handler class. He would ask the students if they're going to take the certification. They said, yeah, some did, some done. And he would ask you, what are you going to do to celebrate when you achieve your certification? He assumed that you were going to achieve it, partly because he was the instructor and he did a really good job. But he's like, you can get this, but I want to know, what is it you're going to do to celebrate? And he wanted something specific, not something like, I'll celebrate somehow. He wanted us to be specific, like, I'm going to buy an expensive steak dinner for myself, or I'm going to take off 2 days and hike X mountain trail. That's the kinds of things he was looking at. So be specific about your celebration. And then next, okay, you've got it. You committed to it. You did it. You celebrated your achievement. Now you need a new goal. But before you get your new goal, I recommend that you rest and recover. After you run a marathon, your body's kind of tore up from that effort, and it is a good idea to rest. That's one of the principles in distance running, is you have to rest in order to be able to perform, because your body needs time to recover. Evaluate your situation and kind of take stock of where you're at and say, okay, here's where I've been, here's where I am. Let's see where I want to go now, because you may not ever run another marathon. There are people who run the marathon, check that off of their list, and they go on to the next thing. There are also people like me that said, you know what? I didn't really achieve everything I wanted out of the marathon. I'm very glad I did it, but I kind of want to try again to see if I can improve on how I did. And then you set new goals related around that. You may want to try something else. Like I said, that's okay, because we're all on a journey, and this is our particular journey. So we meet people in different parts of our journey, and some are further along and some are not. And I'm looping this back into our learnings. You may look at where someone is in their career or where they are in their particular knowledge area expertise, and you say, I want to be there. That's what happened to me at Summit 2019. I said, that's where I want to be. That's how I want to be perceiving of myself when I think of myself. Okay. Being a PowerShell speaker may not be what you want. That's okay. That's fine. Maybe you want to be multi-language. Maybe you want to just be fairly proficient in PowerShell and you want to do C# and Java and whatever other languages you want. That's fine too. Lots of people do that. So that is perfectly okay. The point is to learn and use these principles that I'm espousing to help you achieve your goals more quickly and more efficiently. So in other words, you want to rinse and repeat these steps with your new goal so that you'll be better, stronger, and faster. I've got good news for you though. It's not going to cost you $6 million, and you don't have to crash a plane in order to get it. All right. I hope people understand what that is. This audience should know who $6 Million Man is. Some audiences, they'll be like, what? I don't understand. Look it up. It's on YouTube. It's all in 4x3 and old. All right, let's get to the final thoughts. The final thought, number one, is you can be successful without doing all or even any of these steps. Yes, you can be successful. I'm going to say to you, though, that you can be more successful if you do these steps, okay? Also, you want to take care of your opportunities, because you'll never know when they could come again. So when you have an opportunity, please jump on that and take advantage of those opportunities. Because I can tell you from my experience, you're going to regret not making the most of what you can be. So take it from me, someone who's kind of, you can see a little bit of gray here. As I'm on the backside of my career, and yet I'm still looking to finish strong because I definitely want to finish strong. So make the most of the time that you have while you have it, because quite bluntly, nothing lasts forever. I mean, to look at me, you'd never think that I've completed 10 marathons. So what that says is it just goes to show you that you are much more capable than possibly you even think. And I believe in you, and I bet others do as well. And there's some people here that I know more than others, but I'm just telling you now, I believe in you, and I think you can do more than possibly you think you can do. So go be the best you that you can be. All right, let's talk about all together now. So you need commitment, you need planning, you need preparation. Waiting on that last one. There it is. You need patience, you need flexibility, you need small goals and wins, you need help, you need to run, you need to celebrate, and then you need a new goal. That's my talk. This is how you can keep in touch with me. I look forward to hearing from you. Please let me know if this talk was useful to you. I would love to hear about your successes. If you want me to encourage you on your goals, I would love to do that. I love encouraging people. And thank you very much for your time this evening.